My name's Mr. Desborough, and I've been asked this morning to talk to you about some of the varied careers that you could have with a life after food tech. I certainly can say from the start that where I am currently now in my career is not where I thought I was going to start. So the fact is that you can do many, many different things, and the opportunities you have to travel, one of them, for example, or travel and do loads of different jobs are really wide and varied because of the different skills that you learn when doing food tech. Now, I'm just going to do a little bit of a kind of lifeline, if you like, of some of the jobs that I've had. Certainly not all of them, but obviously it starts off with school. And when I was at school, it wasn't called food tech, it was called home economics. And you had to learn everything from sewing on buttons to doing the washing, laying tablecloths and cooking 3 to 4 course meals for specific needs of people. And that's similar to what you're doing in food tech now, because you might be preparing meals for, say, a diabetic or a celiac or someone who's lactose intolerant, and obviously understanding the various life stages and the nutritional needs that go with that. So that's what I did when I was at school. I was very lucky. I wasn't academic at all. All right, dyslexic, and so found the reading and writing side of things really tricky. But with anything, if you have a passion for something you want to do, those small barriers can easily be overcome. But that's down to, you know, that's you as a person. So I was very lucky because I had a passion for food, and I still do, that I walked away and I managed to get an A, so equivalent to a level 9 now. From there, I went on to the very first catering college in Bury St Edmunds and did a BTEC in hospitality and catering management. And with that, it meant that I did learn how to do cooking, but I also learned broadly, more widely, about different business aspects. So everything from financial accounting, so using my math skills from when I was at school, for example, to planning, organising. So that could lead me into like project management. Learned about stock control. There was so many things about drinks, about reception, running a hotel, for example, or a B&B, and amusement arcades, not arcades, sorry, what they're called, theme parks. So covered such a broad spectrum. It was brilliant, and it really opened my eyes to the world out there that wasn't just about being in a kitchen, because I didn't actually want to be a chef. I wanted to be a manager of a hotel when I was younger. And well, let's see, we moved on, did a few different things. I did really well and went to university. It was called a Polytechnic then, and did a higher national diploma in hospitality and catering management. And there we looked really deeply at the wide, diverse range of jobs that are available in the hospitality industry. And there I actually got a passion for training, and I learned about human resources and employment law. And from doing employment law, I was doing a part-time job in the Metropole Hotel there as sort of a junior trainer and human resources advisor. So I'd be looking after people's contracts of employment, hiring and firing people as well. So that really broadened my knowledge and understanding of this massive industry that we've got.
We've also, sorry sir, we've also got some ICT students in here. So did you do any ICT while you were training at Poly?
Well, as technology, because I'm very old, but as technology was developing, we actually had like our first computers, and we learned how to do we were using the computers for like stock rotation, so ensuring that the stock, the goods that you bought and the goods that you sold were married up, and then developing of marketing media. And so that was from anything from producing menus to flyers to holiday brochures. So that kind of ICT at that stage, Miss Burrell, wasn't a bit later before we got onto the more interesting things that the kids and everyone can do now.
Thank you. That's very relevant, actually, because the U11s are doing a spreadsheet unit on stock and stuff, and then actually giving feedback. So that's brilliant. Well done. Thank you for that.
Oh, right. Well, they definitely will need to do it. I've become a little bit of a whiz now at doing Excel and spreadsheets, because they obviously do all the calculations for you and make life a lot easier, and do predictions as well. And I mean, every business out there now is working on predictions and percentages. Like every aircraft that goes up has a certain load level, how many people they must have on it for it to break even and stuff like that. Whilst at university, I had the most amazing opportunity to be part of Euro Disney, or Disneyland Paris as it is, for when it first opened, which was 25 years ago, which is quite sad. Whilst that's not my certificate in the corner, that's my friend James's, but and above there, I'm somewhere in that massive crowd. That was the most unique experience, and that was the turning point for me to realize that although I'd done food and learn about catering, it meant that I could go to a different country and apply my skills, even though initially there was a language barrier. So while at Disney, when I was there, I started off just working as a waiter in one of the hotels in Festival Disney, and had the opportunity to actually be part of the parade as well. One of my characters is on the left, and it just showed that I was in a different country doing a skill that was universal, and I suddenly realized that this skill is transferable. Having the ability to be able to communicate to people, be able to smile and serve people in just a basic waiting capacity was really good. And it did lead again to doing some training as well while I was out there. So that was an amazing experience. After that, I went to university and did something that my careers teacher, who has been my rock all my life, it has to be said, Mrs. Manning, she said to me that I would not be a good candidate to go to university because it would be too academic and it would be too hard for me. I was a more practical, hands-on, get involved, learn as you do kind of person. Well, I don't know about like some of you, but sometimes if I'm told I can't do something, I am stubborn and I will do my best and try. And as hard as it was, and it wasn't easy, I did end up getting a degree, to which I am to this day still very, very proud, although I'm not proud of the tie that I wore on the day. After that, I went to an amazing place. You might have heard of it. It's called Center Parcs. The one I was at was at the Elvedon Forest. And because I'd done hospitality and catering management, I was given the opportunity to open up one of the complexes at the site. And it was a spa and restaurant. So I was given the job of procurement, which basically means buying. And I do like a bit of shopping. So it was my job to go out in and purchase items from around the world to furnish and fit this particular unit that we were having built. And that was a great eye-opener. And the opportunity I learned then was I had learned how to use the spreadsheets and the computers to do ordering, to do research, to then start negotiating contracts, in importing products from around the world, which now most people do without thinking about it. It's like a little click of a button, and before you know it, Amazon or eBay have delivered something to you. So that was a real management experience, and I was as far removed from the catering side of things as I could be. And from that, I learned all about doing timesheets for when staff need to work, for example, payroll, so accountancy came into it. I was doing first aid, I was doing something called occupational health, and I had this feel for all of these different aspects. And every day I could have chosen a different job, a different path, all from that basis of doing food technology. However, one of my best careers, I have to say, was straight after that. I wanted to travel the world. I couldn't afford it. So the best way I found to do that was to join Virgin Atlantic. And I started off as cabin crew and working for Richard Branson, and travel around the world, looking after people, you know, normal stuff. Absolutely brilliant. Best time. It was a lot of fun. But again, I had a bit of a passion for food and made a few comments to Richard Branson himself. And next thing I know, I've got the job of looking after the clubhouses around the world and ensuring that the standard of service was the same in every single one, which meant communicating with different countries, different nationalities, different religions and beliefs, different cultures, and obviously different foods. So it was my task to design a menu that would be served to the first class passengers on board Virgin Atlantic flights globally. And it was a very pressured job, but it was a very, very fun job. And then all my science from school kicked in, because preparing food to be eaten in an aircraft at altitude at 37,000 feet has a completely different taste and texture to the food that you'd eat on the ground, because you're not in a tube flying through the air. So it was learning about the mechanics and the interaction of ingredients to combine and make things that were stable. Was really interesting, and I learned loads. And then because of that, and we're serving like 400 meals on a plane, I went to the factories to see how they were being produced. And I have to be honest, this is one of my guilty pleasures. I like going onto YouTube and looking at these programs like how do they do that, and these factories where you see them on an industrial level making meals or making whatever, and I just find it fascinating. So I got into that. So I spent some time at Gatwick Handling in their department, watching how everything came in, went out, and the health and hygiene that we had to know was immense. And because of that, I then went on and did an advanced food hygiene course, which allowed me to then teach people the basics of food hygiene. So that then enabled me to teach people outside of Virgin Atlantic. Here's a couple of pictures of the lounges that I opened up, or help opened up. It wasn't just me. So it wasn't about being the chef doing the cooking. It was about looking at future trends, what foods were going to be trendy, I suppose the word is, you know, what drinks were coming out, what do people want? So learning about, so doing questionnaires, doing market research, collecting data, analyzing that data, which obviously doing ICT is something that, you know, you will know about, I'm sure. And moving on with things like that. So like what now, like the current trend is obviously looking at sustainability and using insects, for example, as part of our protein source. So if you haven't already, maybe that's something you can look into. I then went traveling. I wanted a holiday after 11 years at Virgin Atlantic. And so very fortunately, I bought a ticket and went traveling, went to around the world, Australia, etc., New Zealand. And you know, the great thing was, because I could cook, I made friends instantly when I went around. I'd be in a youth hostel, I'd be cooking up a big pasta dish, and then people come along and go, oh, wow, that looks really nice. I'll give you a couple of dollars. Can you cook a portion for me as well? And that funded me to then carry on my travels. So, you know, those skills, they don't have to be at a professional level, but they're a life skill, something that so many people can't do. Test your friends, ask them if they can actually boil a soft-boiled egg. I bet they can't. When I came back, I did have to find a job, and I got one working for Strada, who later was taken over by a company called Traeger's, who owns Bella Italia, Cafe Rouge, Frankie and Benny's became part of it as well. And again, that wasn't as a chef, but that was as a training manager. So training people how to serve people, training people how to use IT for the computer ordering system and things like that. So that was a really good job. And that enabled me to also travel around the country. I think I spent 2 years living in hotel rooms and didn't even stay in my own house at one point because it was really busy, but a lot of fun and a lot of free dinners out, which was really cool. So I'd say I like that. And that is about as far as I got with my PowerPoint, but I'm going to carry on because they've still got stuff to tell you. And after that, I then didn't know what I wanted to do. And then everyone said, oh, wow, why don't you do a party for my friend's kids? So we did a cooking party. And then literally from that, they said, wow, you'd make a great teacher. And that was the last thing I ever wanted to do. But I did. I tried. I went for it. And now, 11 years later, I'm teaching in a secondary school in Brighton and have been to a couple of schools. In fact, I've visited Willington before now. And that's where we are at the moment. Where I go next, who knows? The skills that you learn through life and from doing, like say, through doing food tech, through doing ICT, every one of your subjects all interlink. I think that the subjects you guys are doing are one of the strongest because it opens up the whole world. Literally, the whole world is at your fingertips. You know, you import your knowledge from geography when you're looking at maybe like food from around the world, for example. When you're analyzing data about current trends and production methods, you know, you're again looking at different countries and cultures. Yeah, you got your science, as I mentioned, when at Virgin Atlantic, understanding the effects of altitude. In fact, that reminds me, we also had I helped lead in my last school. It was a competition to help design a menu for NASA. And that is an area that really fascinates me, that the producing food that can be eaten in space, because the whole concept of that is totally different. How they produce rations for the US and UK Army that can last for 5 years, of which it took 7 years to develop how to keep a pizza in a plastic bag so it still tasted the same. Those sort of things to this day still fascinate me and still interest me. And it might not be you want to go into the food side, but maybe you might even want to go into the designing or creating the packaging and the sustainability and stuff behind that. So every day there is another job that I look at and go, wow, I could do that if I wanted to, because you build up your skills and your knowledge as you go through your life and stuff like that. So that is a very quick whistle stop tour. And I know I've missed out loads of things I've done, but I don't want to bore you too much with some of the great jobs and things that I've done. But I just wondered if anyone has any questions, or Mr. Burrell, Mr. Roach, anything?
I'll just give them a second. If you've got any questions, if you're too shy to unmute, I'm sure my lot aren't too shy to unmute, but if you just put it in the chat and I can read it out.
So
is there anything else? Oh, sorry.
So obviously you've had like a variety of careers throughout your lifetime. Like, what advice would you give for people who are like unsure on what they want to do with their career?
Oh, that is a great question, because that was me. I was totally unsure. I went for, do you know what I did? But this is me. What I did, I chose something I had a passion for, that I knew would always be in demand, would always be needed. Like, people will always, for me, people always need to eat. People always want to go on holiday and travel. And therefore I combined them. And I said to myself, before I started Virgin, actually, I said, right, I'll do this job for a year just so I get it out of my system. And then I'll come back to the UK and I'll get a proper job. I'll settle down. Well, that was my proper job. And yeah, and sometimes things just take a different turn. You know, I don't think you need to map out right now that I am going to be this. Because sometimes life isn't like that, and different opportunities come up. And you guys, you know, the whole world is changing. You know, I feel positively antiquated now with, you know, everyone's smartphones and all this technology. Yet I thought I was quite up on it, but things change. And now I'd love to develop and learn how to develop an app, for example. So what would I advise? Go with your heart. Go with something that you feel passionate about, that is almost a bit like a hobby as well. All right.
Good advice. Well, Michael's passionate about, he's actually our head boy, but he's passionate about science. So you might have given him a few ideas. Can you, especially with the science in space, I'm really interested. What sort of foods did you have to make for the astronauts then? And how do they heat it up? How does that all work?
Right. So there's lots of the rule book is so big. You know, just a real simple thing, like you couldn't have a packet of crisps in space because of the crumbs, or fresh or bread, because the smallest micro crumb could get into, you know, this multi-billion pound dollar machine and cause it to break down. Every meal had to have 2.5 times the daily calories that you would normally have on Earth, because your bones, when up in space, they don't absorb as much calcium, and therefore they actually become weaker whilst in space. And so the science behind that was working out the quantities of different macro and micronutrients that was be needed in each dish. I think your second question there, Miss Burrell, was how do they heat it up? Most of their meals are actually cold, but they have a kind of microwave on there where they put a pouch in this like little container thing. I don't really know what it's called. And then they push a button and then sort of hot water and steam goes inside it. Dare I say, a bit like a pot noodle, except in a vacuum pack. And then that sort of gets heated up, and then they literally squish it out, eat it out of tubes and things like that.
Does it taste the same? Sorry, does it taste the same?
No, it really doesn't. And again, the flavors change being at altitude than what they do on the ground. So there's been a lot of communication with astronauts and the technicians on the ground about, right, well, what are the flavors that are enhanced? So when you're at altitude, salt and sugar you don't taste as well, so you end up putting more in on the ground than you would necessarily do, so that you can actually get those flavors. Okay. And another thing that, you know, on a science point of view, is like alcohol. A unit of alcohol on the ground has nearly 4 or 5 times the effect when you're in altitude. So understanding all those different chemical elements that react within food itself is really mega important. Did that answer your question, Ms. Burrell? Sorry.
Yes, it did. It did. Thank you very much. Michael said they use an air convection oven. Thank you, Michael, for that.
Yeah, thanks.
And Mr. Roach has got his hand up.
Yeah, I just, it's really interesting what you're saying, actually, about how diversity of jobs can happen just when you follow something that you're passionate about, or something that you have an interest in. It's very important, I think, that, you know, as you said, we say to the children, don't feel that your life is set out by your choices now. It's very often you'll end up doing things now that maybe you enjoy to do, that you're good at, and then things just happen, and you find your way. As such, you find your way. And actually, it's interesting, you've had those quite diverse roles, especially things like cabin crew, and then going back into catering, and then obviously traveling as well, because you know, I've always said to my students, I did a lot of traveling after university, and for me that was one of the best things I ever did, because it just opened your eyes up to the world and what opportunities you've got out there. So yeah, don't feel that your life's set out. I think it's really important. It's great that you've come here and spoken about how, you know, your career has just sort of have quite diverse elements just through following things that you've enjoyed and found out, and finding new things from what you've enjoyed.
Yeah, and also it's developed some of the skills that I wasn't very good at school, believe it or not. Like maths was never like my strongest, although it was better than English. But because of running businesses and dealing with literally being given like £3 million, not in my hand, sadly, and then going, right, you've got to spend that wisely, and learning how to do accounts, and again, spreadsheets and forecasting and working out revenues and projections. And it actually has led to me actually doing an accountancy course only last year. So you never stop learning. And you know, if you've got a passion for something, even if it is just a hobby, it's just another, or the saying is like another feather in your cap, just something else you can add to the party, if you like. So
thank you very much. Is there any other questions from anyone? As I say, if you want to put it in the chat, if I can read it out to Sir.
Oh, shy.
I know.
What would you say your most rewarding career has been throughout?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna have to say, for me, it was working at Virgin Atlantic, because I could talk literally all day about that one career. In 11 years, I started off just as cabin crew, and probably every 2 years I ended up having a new job, but within the organization. So I left the cabin crew flying thing, but then went into doing the training. And then this is something that I never thought I'd do. I actually got involved in designing an aircraft chair for first class. So I spent like a couple of days at McLaren, the racing car drivers, sitting in racing cars going, well, this is comfortable, but wouldn't it be good if a seat did this? And even though I have no engineering experience, and it wasn't just me, it's a team of people, we contributed to making the world's first flatbed seat in first class. So I was really proud of that, to go on a flight and seeing that and seeing people use it. And obviously got to meet loads of famous people. But I think for me that the ultimate was this is a bit of name dropping really, but it was just talking to Richard Branson and saying, whenever I go to Hong Kong and I have a drink, it's in this glass. And if I ask for a sandwich, it's on this plate. But if I go to New York, it's like this. And he went, all right, then sort it. And then within 2 days, I was given they created a job for me, and I was in charge of, we called it Red Hand, which basically meant I was going around going, no, change. And that was just brilliant. To be able to wake up in the morning and go, right, where shall I go to work today? And pick a country was still the highlight in my life, as is turning left on an aircraft and going to the front and sitting in first class, which doesn't happen anymore. Unless I go on EasyJet and then I load at the back and then I pretend to be walking towards the front.
I've got one from Malak here. She says, if you went back to school, would you have done anything differently?
Yes. One, I wouldn't have been quite as naughty as I was, because I think I'm getting calmer for being a teacher. No, in fairness, I do wish that I could have asked for help when I needed it. Maybe that was a time at school. It's different to what it is now. There's a lot more support for students than there was when I was at school. However, mine would be, if I don't know something, not to bury my head in the sand and just get all scared about it and not do anything about it. And what was the other one? There was something else, actually. I thought about this the other day. I wish I was a little bit better at science, because that and food just went hand in hand. But, I've learned that along the way now. But yeah, mine would be to ask for help when I need it. And I'm not just saying this, kids, I mean this one as well. And Miss Burrell will actually back this up. Not to leave things to the last minute to do. Because however long you think you've got, suddenly trying to do something the night before it's due in, or thinking, I've got ages, and then panicking about it is one trait that I wish I didn't do when I was at school, or now for that matter.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. Yes, I do keep telling them that. That's something I think I will say. And also I like the bit that you said about not burying your head in the sand. I like that bit as well.
Ask for help.
Okay, any last questions at all from anyone on anything that Mr. Desborough's talked about? Okay.
Oh, Michael, sorry, just going on your question about what's another highlight of your career. Okay, something I never thought I would do. All right, and this isn't a plug, Miss Burrell, I'm just saying, was I never thought I would have created a video and had it on YouTube and had like 1,000 people watch it during the first lockdown. So I'm actually quite proud of that, to be honest.
I don't actually, sir, I'll have to show them. I haven't done it to my year 11s, but I have shown some of your Mr. D cooking videos to years 7, 8 and 9 when we were in lockdown. And
oh,
also,
right, okay.
And also, you and Mr. Roach actually both share something because you've both done something for me. A couple of years ago, I haven't got any better, so Mr. Roach now does it for me. You kindly came into Willingdon and demonstrated to my then Year 11 catering students how to bone a chicken.
I
Now,
did indeed.
still really rubbish at that. Mr. Roach is absolutely brilliant because his passion is food and cooking. So he
Oh,
now
brilliant.
does that for me. So
Oh wow, excellent, excellent. Oh, that's good. I wonder why
Yeah,
you didn't ask me
multitasking.
that. Well done, Mr. Roach. That's brilliant. Good to know.
okay, well, thank you very much for giving up your time this morning, Mr. Desborough.
That's
I'm
okay,
just gonna
thank you.
It's very interesting, and as I said, I think the main thing that we could all see was the fact that you, as you rightly said at the beginning, you don't need to know what you want to do as soon as you leave school, or even, you know, things are always changing and different opportunities all the time. Okay, I have got another question